Welcome to the Actor's Side. Today, one of my favorite actors. She's already been nominated twice for Academy Awards, all kinds of other things. Won every kind of Irish award, I noticed, that you could possibly win several times. This is Saoirse Ronan. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Pete.
I have to say, your new film, Lady Bird, is just a gem. It really is. Do you know that going into a project like that it's going to turn out as good when you see it on paper?
No, I don't think you do. I think there's certain projects that you'll be involved in and judging by the script that it's good. Like, it would be very difficult to mess something like this up, and I think that was the case with Lady Bird. But even still, you can be involved in great projects that end up becoming a really great film all around, and commercially they don't do well, or nobody gets to see it, or it doesn't get this sort of attention. So I don't think you can ever predict that necessarily. But definitely from reading the script, you could tell it was really special. So.
Yeah. And I think everybody listening now and listening to you talk can tell that you were born in the Bronx.
Yeah, obviously, clearly, right? So tough.
That's so funny. The first time I met you and I go like, wow, you were born in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And two actors, actually. Your father is an actor, your mother?
No, my mom's not an actor, but my dad wasn't an actor when they had me. When I was about 2, I think, they went over to New York in the 80s. There was a really bad recession in Ireland at the time. There was no work.
Yeah. And
so Dad went over ahead and sort of set everything up with his friend, and then Mom and his friend's girlfriend followed over. And they hustled and they worked for basically 11 years straight, and couldn't go home for the first 3 years after they had arrived there. And my mom was a nanny most of the time she was there, and Dad had worked in construction and did lots of things like that. And then eventually he worked in a bar, and he got discovered that way. So I was about 2 at that stage when he started. He started relatively late as well. It was about 27 when he started. I suppose for me, I'm thinking
you're the opposite.
15 is late. So
you're making up for time now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, getting in early.
What was your first professional, strong acting job? You did some television, didn't you? Yeah.
I did like a couple of weeks on a TV show called The Clinic, which a lot of people got their start in at home. And I was in that for a couple of seasons, sort of a few scenes here and there. And then I did another series where I had a slightly bigger part, and that's when I got to meet Roz and John Hubbard, who are big casting agents over in the UK. And Roz is actually Irish, and she had cast Dad in a lot of things, and they were a huge supporter of him. And they cast me in that show, and they had this film that they were doing with Amy Heckerling. And it was, the part of this American kid. She lives in the valley. Her mother is Michelle Pfeiffer. It was completely, it wasn't, similar to me at all, because my mother is not Michelle Pfeiffer in real life. And so I went in and I auditioned for it and got the part, and it was it went on from there. But everything really links up, I think, and it does. You can put the work in and you can be good and all that sort of stuff, but a lot of it does come down to, 1 or 2 people coming along and going, who you should see for this, and I'd really recommend seeing this person. And I think that was a big part of it.
It's a real community, even though it's around the world.
And there's a lot of support needed there, the dialect coach that I worked with on that first film she works with Keira Knightley a lot, and so she was going to do Atonement, and she told Joe to see me.
Joe Wright, the director.
Yeah, so Jill, who's still a dear friend, she got me seen for that, otherwise there's no way I would have been seen. I was completely wrong for the part,
Well, except that was
physically
huge. That was major for you, that movie, and it got you an Oscar nomination and a BAFTA nomination and a Golden Globe. All of this stuff at a very young age, and and as you're saying, it was unexpected. It was just something that you stumbled into through connections.
Yeah.
Wow. And what was that like, making that movie? Because did you know when you were making that movie that it was going to open up the world in this way for you?
I mean, I never thought of it as that. I've never, and even, I mean, maybe more so now because you're just more aware of like the effect a film can have on you and a career and audiences and things like that. But like when I was a kid, I wasn't thinking past working on set, which I think is the right way to be. And I've tried to like remain in that headspace as I get older as much as possible. I think again, even at 12, I had enough cop on to know that like this was a very special project and the people in it were great, and James McAvoy was so brilliant in it, and Benedict and Juno Temple and Ciara and all these great people. So so you know, I had the makings of something fantastic, but it was only my third film, so I didn't really have a gauge on, you know, less what was good and what was bad, but what would be successful and what wouldn't, you know.
You've made so many interesting, wonderful films since then, since Atonement, Brooklyn, which is just still one of the best. I mean, that character, Break Your Heart Time, and as a study of an immigrant, somebody coming over too, it's a very interesting, timely story, I think.
It is.
You see that human side there that was so moving.
Yeah, it's told from a woman's point of view, which was quite unusual up until Brooklyn came out. I mean, the only other one I could think of was The Immigrant with Marion Cotillard, which came out a couple of years before that. And yeah, and it's just a very, I think what was so special, what is so special about it is that it's a very intimate telling of that story from sort of the very beginning to the point where you really find yourself in this new place, you know, and you're right there with her for the whole thing. And, you know, it's Brooklyn, even just thinking about it gets me emotional. It's like the closest I've come to, I can't imagine how Greta feels with Lady Bird, because you feel like it's just your entire self went into it, you know. So for me, Brooklyn was just so personal, and the fact that it got the response that it did, we were just in a dream.
But I think that's why it got the response that it did, because you could feel that.
I hope so.
You know, if an audience, a film audience can tell something that's real or not, or something there.
Yeah, it was.
You can't lie to the camera.
No, you can't. And that's what I love about it. Like, it's I think it's a really special thing, especially if you've grown up working with a camera as well, to really be able to use it and have it be something that just like fuels you to be present. Like, you have to be present because it will pick up on everything. Yeah. And I think sometimes with other types of performances, even if it's on stage, there's moments where you can kind of recheck and all that, but if a lens is right there, there's no getting away from it, you know. And I love that about film.
I want to go where culture is, like
New
New
in the
York,
world did I raise such a
or at least
snob?
Connecticut or New Hampshire, where writers live in the woods.
Get into those schools anyway.
Mom!
You can't even pass your driver's test.
Because you wouldn't let me practice
The way
enough.
that you work, or the way that you don't work, you're not even worth state tuition, Christine.
My name is Lady Bird.
Well, actually, it's not, and it's ridiculous.
Call me Lady Bird like
Christine.
you said you would.
You should just go to City College. You know, with your work ethic, just go to City College and then to jail, and then back to City College, and then maybe you'd learn to pull yourself up and not expect everybody to do everything.
You were playing California again here, you know, from Sacramento. You've had a lot of experience doing accents and different things. Was this a challenge in any particular way, this character for you, different from what you've done?
The accent actually was quite challenging. I didn't think it would be, but the Californian accent, and I think the Sacramento accent in particular, is quite specific. Like, even if you listen to the way Greta speaks, it's very interesting, like, you know, how she pronounces things, how she enunciates things, and I realised when I was doing it that, like, when Irish people speak, it's so, I'm even aware of it now, like, you're so muscular when you're making sounds.
Right.
And with a Californian accent, it makes sense. Like, people are in the sun, they're by the beach, or like, but I think it does have a big part of it, and it's much lazier. You know, it's much more laid back and flatter. And one of the things that Greta had to keep saying to me was like, take the melody out of it, because I'm so sing-songy when I speak naturally. So that was a challenge. And I think another challenge was also just coming to terms with the fact that, like, I wasn't going to know this character entirely until it was all done and it had all been put together. Because I think there's some roles you can play and you've got a pretty clear idea from the off of like what the arc is and what the emotional journey is and all that. But with her, from one scene to the next, it's like a photo album, and each moment is really defining. And like we were talking about it earlier, that you know when kids have seen their parents like talk on the phone, and then they've got their toy phone and they've like got it between their head and their shoulder, and they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll tell her. And so we've found her at this point in her life where she's just trying on all these different characters to see which one fits. And so once I wrapped my head around the fact that like she was going to be different in almost every scene, like when she sees Kyle and she sees what he's interested in the next scene, she will be Kyle, basically, you know? And so it was great. It was great to play that. Like,
well, she's somebody's identity. I mean, she says, I'm going to name myself Ladybird. Yes. That's who I'm going to be.
And I think that it could have even been the trigger for her going, okay, I'm going to set out to find myself, you know, and Ladybird. By naming herself Ladybird, that was the beginning of that journey.
And what was it like being directed by an actor, Greta Gerwig, in her first directorial job here? Was that a special help, considering she comes from Sacramento and she knows that area well? And how did she help you as an actor here?
I mean, it was so helpful to have an actor direct us, because it's specifically Greta, just because of the type of person she is. Because she gets it. She knows what's going on in an actor's head when they're playing a role, and she knows how vulnerable you can feel and how insecure you can feel and what kind of encouragement each person needs. Like, because she's an actor and she's a good one and she's a writer who pays so much attention, she's very sensitive to what we all need. And each one of us probably at different times got different sorts of attention depending on what we needed. And that was amazing. And I think you just pick up a certain sensibility when you're an actor, and then when you do cross over into directing, where you can just read someone and you can kind of, I even had that recently on the job I just did. Like I could tell when we needed music on set, and I could tell when we needed silence for a minute before we went into a take, or when we needed to do, you know, rolling resets for a few minutes or whatever. And I think it's something that you just start to pick up when your job is to play other people and you have to understand other people and how they tick and all that. So she's got that. And she's also been on so many film sets with really great directors like Noah and Mike Mills and people like that. And Rebecca Miller, you know.
Right, yeah.
Right, and so she's picked up things from all of them, I think, and what she thinks is helpful and useful, and such a clever thing to do. So we got this person who had really done their research and really had sort of honed in on what her skill was before she directed her first film.
And fantastic cast. Your scenes with Laurie Metcalf are just, and also Tracy Letts.
I know.
Too. I mean, as your parents.
I love them. I'm so lucky. My parents are the best. I've got the best parents.
I know. And then you go and make another movie, and then you do, you know, upcoming for Saoirse Ronan, Mary Queen of Scots. That's a movie you just finished shooting that you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Which is a whole other
I have
thing.
No parents in that.
No parents, no. Mary Queen
just
of Scots.
Just my country.
That's your parent,
Yeah, that's my
And
child.
I saw a picture you're in that's coming out next year that I really loved, and it's a fascinating movie called On Chesil Beach.
Yeah.
And it's another great performance, another great role, too. There's so many in your resume and upcoming that the whole world of acting here is before you, I think. And we're going to see a lot of great performances from you.
Thank you.
Especially Lady Bird. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saoirse Ronan.
Thanks.